Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Game of Thrones Season 6 prediction results. So this video is where I talk about a series of prediction videos I made for Season 6 of Game of Thrones before it aired and discuss the results. Now some of you may be thinking this video is coming out a little late as Season 6 finished over 3 months ago, but it took me a while to tally up all of my results on my prediction videos as I've been busy. So I went and added annotations to all of my Season 6 predictions videos that specifically tally up which predictions I got right or wrong. So if you want more specifics, you can check out those videos. However, this video is where I discuss overall how I did, what I think of the results, and how Season 6 actually went down. So I'm going to have to give a spoiler warning for up to the end of Season 6. If you haven't seen all of Season 6, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So I'll group my prediction videos into two categories: my distant predictions and my recent predictions. My distant predictions refers to the predictions I made in late 2015 before there was any official images or trailers released, and my recent predictions refers to prediction videos I made in 2016 after images and trailers were released, and indeed after Season 6 began. So let me start off with my distant predictions, as I made these predictions with very little to go on. In fact, it was quite different than my Season 5 predictions, in which I still had the books to go on, whereas here was almost entirely guesswork, and I based it off of a few production leaks that were out, and we found out even many of those weren't all that reliable. So in all my prediction videos for this series, I stated that my goal to get was 20% of my predictions correct, and when I added annotations to these videos, that was the goal I was going by when I tallied up the results. However, I did find in retrospect that was rather an easy goal to make. I had moved it down from 50% for my Season 5 predictions because, as I said, Season 6 was much harder to predict, as I didn't have much to go on. However, even so, I found that there were a lot of predictions that were still kind of easy, as some things were self-evident. So 20% was too easy to make, which is what I found when tallying up the results. In fact, out of the 14 videos I made, only one of them came out under 20%. However, I did find that I was correct that 50% was too hard of a goal. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to set the goal at 40%, which may be a more realistic goal. That's difficult to achieve, but not too difficult. So let's judge these videos with that goal of 40% in mind. So let me talk about the first video I did, my Tyrion predictions video, where the results were 17 out of 45 correct for a total of 37% correct. So if I hold it up to my 40% goal, this video failed. Of course, I had the outlandish theory that Tyrion would go to Old Town, which is just out there, although I later transferred this theory to Jorah, which I'm still sticking by and will probably make for my Season 7 predictions. Other than that, I expected a bit too much out of the Tyrion storyline, and while I didn't hate it, I thought it was fine. It wasn't quite as great as my predictions made it out to be, as in my predictions, Tyrion was a lot more proactive, whereas Tyrion didn't actually do all that much in Season 6. He just made truce with the slavers and got some red priests to go around hyping up Daenerys. Okay, so let's move on to my Jon Snow video, where I got 28 out of 71 predictions correct for a total of 39%, which is just barely misses my 40% goal. Just barely. Where I went wrong here is predicting that Alliser Thorne would be Lord Commander long term, and Jon Snow would be resurrected in secret and would be in hiding from the Night's Watch, who would become corrupt. So I obviously didn't foresee that there'd be this struggle at the start of the season that would end with Alliser and the other mutineers getting executed in the very third episode. I was right about Davos and Melisandre being devoted to Jon and him getting a wildling force together to take on the Boltons, and I was right he would reunite with Sansa, which wasn't a prediction everyone was making at the time, as a lot of people did believe that they were going to miss each other again because it happens so often in the show, but I was right that they did in fact meet. Okay, so now let me move on to my Jaime video where I got 21 out of 44 predictions correct for a final score of 48%, so I did indeed reach my 40% goal with this video. I'm not sure, I think most of my correct predictions involved leaks we already knew about, like what was happening in King's Landing and in Riverrun, but to tell you the truth, I'm surprised I got this one right, as I got a lot of major things wrong, as I thought Jaime and Cersei would be at odds with each other, but they weren't. I thought the Tullys would, hold back the Lannister and Frey forces at Riverrun, which didn't happen. I thought there'd be bigger conflict between Brienne and Jaime, and there wasn't, but somehow I still managed to get 48% of my predictions correct, so good on me. Next is my Sansa video where I got 27 out of 74 predictions correct for a total score of 36%, meaning I failed to reach my goal here as well, which isn't surprising as I thought Sansa would meet up with Rickon and would stay at the last hearth and would trick the Karstarks into joining the Starks by getting the Lord killed, and then she'd go to the Riverlands with Brienne, and all that was way off. However, the first part of my predictions were totally spot on, where she and Theon run from the Bolton soldiers and were saved at the last minute by Brienne, and then accepts Brienne into her service. Now, I got a few comments saying that those predictions were easy to make and anyone could see them coming, but that's not true. There were quite a few people out there saying otherwise, and many of whom believed she would not hook up with Brienne, so I do think I deserve some credit for getting those first few episodes so spot on correct. But then everything went downhill after that. After I got the news that Sansa would be in the north towards the end of the season, I changed my tune that she would send Brienne to the Riverlands, and that was correct, although I said it would be to kill Jaime, but instead it was to retrieve the Tullys and get them to join their struggle, which I didn't predict because frankly that's a really stupid move on Sansa's part, as she should have realized that they'd have their hands full, but whatever. However, I did predict she would spend most of the season in the north and not go somewhere like the Vale, as some people were saying, so at least I got that part right. So next is my Arya video where I got 21 out of 45 predictions correct for a final score of 47%, meaning Arya is another video where I succeeded and reached my goal. A lot of this was predicting that she'd be blind for a while and then be tested by the Faceless Men, and then the waif would try to kill her, and that Arya would succeed in killing the waif. Where I went wrong was my thinking that she'd stay in the Faceless Men after she killed the waif, which was wrong. However, I wasn't totally incorrect, as I said this would be a test by Jaqen, which was pretty much the case, and that Jaqen would be happy with her killing the waif, which was also correct, because the one thing I was against was that the Faceless Men would be actively chasing after her after she left Braavos, which is what a lot of people were thinking, but I knew that wouldn't be the case, because if the Faceless Men want you dead, you're dead. So I was right there that they weren't actively trying to kill her or chase after her. I was wrong about where she'd go in Westeros, as I thought she'd meet up with Ian McShane and the Hound and fight off the outlaws, but that whole storyline happened without her. Plus, I thought that she would have her wolf dreams and a war again and meet up with Nymeria at the end, but, I kind of knew that wouldn't happen. I was just making wishful thinking predictions. So next is my Daenerys video where I got 21 out of 48 predictions correct for a score of 44%. So this video was also a success. With Daenerys, I was right that her time with the Dothraki would be, not uneasy and stressful, but she'd eventually win them over. However, this is an example where I was led astray by production leaks that weren't entirely accurate, as it stated that Drogon would destroy the temple with her inside and she'd survive, and that's how the Dothraki would be devoted to her, and all that happened, but without Drogon. And I did get some shit for the prediction that she'd survive the fire, with so many people saying Daenerys isn't fireproof, but I was like, look, I'm just going off of what the production leaks are saying. And that part of it at least turned out to be correct. I was correct that she'd win over the Dothraki and take them to Meereen to fight the slavers and make the city safe and once and for all. And I was correct that she'd take the Dothraki with her to Westeros, which is another prediction that many people were against at the time, but I happened to be right. Where I went wrong, of course, was my prediction that she'd leave for Westeros in episode 7 and arrive by the end of the season. That was far too optimistic, and she didn't stop by Volantis to pick up slave refugees. That was pretty far out there for a prediction. I was right about her making an alliance with Dorne, even if I was wrong about who in Dorne she'd make that alliance with. So now let's move on to my brand video where I got 14 out of 26 predictions correct for a final score of 54%, which is an impressive number, which of course meets my goal. However, this is where I think this numbering and percentage system I'm using kind of fails because it doesn't take into account the severity of certain predictions, as most of the things I got right here and there were like minor details, most of which were easy to guess based off production leaks, as I got a lot of major details wrong, as I didn't predict his cave would be under attack. I thought he'd go off on a mission via Walking to scout the White Walkers with Mirror, Hodor, and Leaf, so I thought he'd still be in the cave at the end of the season. I predicted the White Walkers would be approaching the wall at the end of the season, which is wrong, although at least I didn't say that the wall would come down by the end of season 6, which many people were saying, but I was strongly opposed to that, and turns out I was right there. I was also correct that Bran's storyline would be the only appearance of the White Walkers in season 6, and I was correct that R+L=J would be revealed this season, which is a prediction a lot of people were against, as they didn't think the show would jump ahead of the books in such an important point, but I knew that the showrunners don't care about that sort of thing, nor should they, in my opinion. Okay, next is my Samwell Tarly predictions video where I got 10 out of 30 predictions correct for a final score of 30%. Okay, so I didn't do so well here, as first off I predicted he would travel to Old Town by land. Part of my thinking was because I knew he'd be in Hornhill by mid-season. I didn't think it made sense for him to go to Old Town first, which if he was traveling by boat, which is what should have happened, but I should have realized that the show doesn't have any logic when it comes to traveling in Game of Thrones. So I predicted that Sam and Gilly would meet up with the Hound and Septon Maribald, and that's how he would get his introduction. And then I predicted that he'd go to Old Town and go on a quest for, Maester Marwyn and meet up with Tyrion. So basically, my main issue was I predicted Sam would be in season 6 a lot more than he was, where he actually barely appeared in season 6. So the stuff I got right mostly had to do with his time at Hornhill, as it was easy to predict that his dad would be a dick to him and there would be a conflict, although I predicted that his brother Dickon would stand up for him, which he didn't, but at least he wasn't a dick to him, so at least I got that part right. Okay, so now I have to get to my Prince Doran video where I got 1 out of 19 predictions correct for a final score of 5%. So much like the Dorne storyline itself, this video was a total failure. The only prediction I got right was that Daenerys made an alliance with Dorne. Everything else was wrong. But I want to make it clear that I didn't hate the Dorne storyline because I was totally wrong. I don't give a crap about being wrong. As with my Jon, Arya, and Sansa predictions, I thought the show did what the show did was actually way better than what I predicted. With Dorne, it's more of I got it so wrong because I was giving the writers the benefit of the doubt and I was expecting it not to suck. If I was more cynical and realized that the writers have no fucking clue how to write Dorne and would inevitably fuck everything up, then I might have been more correct. But even then, I don't think that I could have actually predicted that they would do something so bad, such as killing off the only good character in the whole stupid storyline in a pointless and ridiculous fashion before he actually got to do anything good, and then show off how brilliant of a character he could be. He had the potential of being such a great character. So this is far worse than I thought the show could ever stoop to. However, regarding this video, I have to give a brief word regarding Monday morning quarterbacks. As while Season 6 was airing, I was absolutely bombarded by comments on this video telling me Duran is dead, many of which had some name calling thrown my way or otherwise negatively criticizing my predicting abilities. One comment I got was calling me a knob and telling me to get off YouTube as I'm worthless. And I gotta be honest, I actually found that amusing because it's so absurd. But the ones that actually annoyed me more were the comments that simply said Prince Duran is dead. You won't find any of these comments on that video, however, because I deleted them all, as I don't put up with that crap. But to be honest, that the last one of these comments that I got towards the end of Season 6, where it was another person who just simply posted, Prince Duran is dead, I wish I hadn't deleted it, because I thought of a very appropriate response. What I should have said in reply to the comment, Duran is dead, is this. Wow, your powers of deductive reasoning are simply amazing. What are you doing with your life? Are you a detective? If not, I highly recommend that you go out and become one immediately. Your talent is being completely wasted writing YouTube comments when you could be out there solving the world's most poignant mysteries. Go forth, young man, and put those strong powers of deduction to work. Of course he's fucking dead! I saw the same goddamn episode that you did. I think part of the issue is some morons don't know how to check the date on the videos and think I just made it when I actually made it 7 months before Season 6 came out. And another part of the problem is people love to Monday morning quarterback while it's easy to just sit on your armchair, eat Doritos, and point out predictions that I made months ago with almost no information to go on or incorrect, and probably makes you feel superior, but it requires no intelligence on your part. Now, if you predicted 7 months before Season 6 started that Duran, Ariel, Hotah, and Tristain would all be killed by the Sand Snakes in the very first episode, then I would congratulate you, and then you could gloat over how wrong I was. But just pointing out something that I saw as well in the same goddamn episode doesn't make you a super genius. And yes, I know I totally got these predictions wrong, and this whole video was a complete and utter failure. I freely admit that, but as I say in all these videos, these predictions are just wild shots in the dark. I'm expecting to get most of them wrong. Anyway, moving on. The next video is my Littlefinger's predictions video, where I got 4 out of 20 predictions correct for a final score of 20%, meaning I fell well below of my new goal. Hell, I barely even made the original one. So with Littlefinger, I started the video out by saying Littlefinger was a really hard one to pin down, so I wasn't expecting to do all that good, and I didn't. I thought he'd be in King's Landing at the start of the season, and he wasn't. I thought Ramsay would survive the Battle of Bastards, and Littlefinger would make a secret deal with him, and I was totally wrong. I did predict he would show up at the Battle of Bastards at the last second with the Vale Army. However, I said he would join whichever side was winning, and that clearly wasn't the case. Otherwise, he would have joined the Boltons. So yeah, I got a lot wrong here. So next is the Theon video, where I got 11 out of 33 predictions correct for a final score of 30%. So what I got correct here was that Theon would be saved by Brienne and would part ways with Sansa, wanting to return home. What I got wrong is that he would go to Deepwood Moat to find his sister rather than using the magic teleporter to get to the Iron Islands. I also thought Yara would use him to become king, where she'd be the real power behind dying, which was wrong. I thought Euron would know about his missing parts, which he did. I thought Theon and Yara would go along with Euron once he was king. I didn't predict that they'd run away to Daenerys while Euron threatened to murder them. I didn't think Euron would be talking about making an alliance with Daenerys. I thought the Ironborn would attack the Reach, where Theon and Yara would team up with Randall Tarly to undermine Euron, but Euron would kill him, so I was way off there. And then I predicted that Euron would move to strike against King's Landing, which was also way off, so yeah, I got a lot wrong in this video. So then comes my final character-based predictions video, my Cersei video, where I got 18 out of 57 predictions correct for a score of 31%. So I failed to reach my goal here as well. I thought Cersei and Jaime would have a falling out. I thought she'd have a falling out with Tommen. I thought there would be a trial by combat, more specifically a trial by sevens, which she'd win. That was wrong. I thought the Lannister and Tyrell forces would fight it out in the Red Keep, while the High Sparrow delegitimized Tommen and took over King's Landing. I was totally wrong there. And I predicted that Cersei would send Robert Strong to kill Marjorie, but he killed Mace instead. So I was right about Cersei killing Mace, but just got the details wrong. I said that Varys would kill Pycelle and Kevan Lannister like in the books. I was wrong. It was just Qyburn who just killed Pycelle. I didn't predict her blowing up Baelor Sepp. I certainly didn't predict her becoming queen at the end. So yeah, I did get a lot wrong. I did predict Marjorie would placate the High Sparrow in order to free herself, but I guess I underestimated how far she'd go. I did, however, correctly predict that the High Sparrow would send men to retrieve Cersei and that the Mountain would fight them off. However, I predicted Lancel would die in that altercation, but he was smart enough to keep his distance. And I was right in a way about the High Sparrow's seizing control of the crown. I just didn't predict he'd do it by manipulating Tommen. And I most certainly was absolutely 100% correct that Gendry was not the gift that Littlefinger gave Lady Olenna, and it was indicated it was in fact Lancel, because that was self-contained in season 5, so the fact that it was never brought up again proved that it was just a thing in that one episode in season 5 that people misinterpreted. And in fact, I got a comment after season 6 finished with someone asking if I was willing to finally admit now that I was wrong about Lancel, implying that it was somehow proven wrong in season 6, and my reply was just laughter, as I was in fact proven right, or at the very least that it wasn't Gendry, as I still maintain that it is one of the most ridiculous Game of Thrones theories that I have ever heard. That is, in fact, it's not based off of anything, in fact. So whatever. But anyway, moving on. Okay, so next is my Who's Going to Die video, where I got 12 out of 20 predictions correct for a score of 60%. So ironically, this is the video I did the best in for this series, as I thought it would be the one I'd do the worst in, as I really had no idea who would die and was just guessing. The main ones I got wrong were the ones I missed, but those weren't included in this score, such as Loras, Marjorie, Doran, Alistair Thorne, Ollie, the High Sparrow, the Blackfish, and Walder Frey, among others. However, the ones I did say I was mostly right with people like Ian McShane's character, although I didn't know his name at the time, the Outlaws, a Frey commander who ended up being Lothar Frey, Roose and Walder Bolton, Osha, Small John Umber, Balon Greyjoy, Mace Tyrell, Maester Pycelle, and Kevan Lannister. The main one I got wrong was in Bran's storyline, as I predicted Miriel would die, when in fact the opposite happened, as she was the only one in that storyline to survive, where everyone else in that storyline died, so that was massively wrong. I also thought Daario would die, which was wrong. I thought that Davos would die, and I'm so happy I was wrong about that. I even thought that Qyburn would die. As for my predictions on who would survive, I briefly mentioned Bronn and Project, who were both favorites to die, so I was correct, they both survived. But for my main two predictions on who would survive, I definitely was totally wrong in saying that Tommen and Rickon would survive. In fact, I said no way does Rickon die, and I was totally wrong. I would argue that it's because I didn't think the show would be so predictable or actually suck that much, but that's just me. I know people have different opinions. He's dead, so I was wrong. But I still got a majority of my picks correct, which really surprised me, so there you go. So the final video in my distant prediction series is my overall prediction summary, where I summarize all my important predictions that I made and make some new ones and some changes to some other ones based off of new information that I had. So this video is mostly just repeating predictions I already made, but it's telling because I mentioned only the ones I thought were important. So my score for this video was 23 out of 94 correct, for a score of 24%. So that is a failure, and I think it points to the heart of my predictions. The most important ones did not succeed. However, I did make my original 20% goal, which is all I was expecting, so there is that. So, out of all my predictions in my distant predictions video series, I got 228 out of 626 predictions correct, for a final score of 36% correct. So I did overall fail to meet my 40% goal, but I did succeed in my original 20% prediction goal, but that was a bit too easy to do. But if I go by my 40% goal, then I had 5 videos that managed to meet that: the Jaime, Arya, Daenerys, Bran, and Who's Going to Die video. So those were the successes in this series. Okay, so now let me move on to my recent predictions series, the series of prediction videos I made. I'm mostly reacting to something that has been released, whether it be photos, trailers, or episodes that have been released. This does make it a bit easier, but it's still not a complete given, because you're still trying to predict what will happen in the future, or trying to interpret a brief clip or still image, which isn't foolproof. There's still a lot of guesswork involved. So the goal I set for myself for these videos are 50%. So the first video in this series is the official photos release video, where I tried to make predictions based off these official photos that were released, but I didn't make too many, as I tried not to read too much into still images, which I find a lot of other people do, which I actually find a bit annoying. Like, I didn't mention this in this video, but how an insanely large number of people thought Sansa was pregnant in one of these photos, but I knew that was just a costume bulge, and of course was totally right about that. People just read too much into things. So my score here was 9 out of 12 correct, for a final score of 75%. So this was a total success, and it may seem easy just judging what's happening in photos, but I think it's fair to say I did better than most, mostly because I kind of played it safe and didn't try to read too much into things. So the next video in this series is my review and analysis for the first Season 6 trailer that was released, where I got 16 out of 26 predictions correct, for a score of 62% correct. So this also meets my 50% goal. This was predicting what would happen based off of the fast images, which isn't all that easy to do. I got quite a few things wrong, as I was very insistent that Tyrion would not release the dragons, and although he didn't, he did unchain them, so I was wrong about that. I was also insistent that no one would find out about Jorah's grayscale, and that the High Sparrow would seize King's Landing. However, I did get most of my observations of what we saw in the trailer correct. So the next video is the March Madness trailer review, where I got 5 out of 11 predictions correct, for a score of 45%. So I failed to make my goal here, and I did indeed make a lot of false predictions here, as I thought Tommen ran away ran away from the Red Keep and to hide with the High Sparrow, which never happened. I thought Tyrion was talking to the Masters, when in fact he was actually talking to freed slaves. So I didn't do too well in this video. Next video was the trailer number 2 review and analysis, where I got 20 out of 34 predictions correct for a score of 59%. I did much better on this trailer review as I started to realize things such as Tyrion was going to visit the dragons and Bran was going to visit the Night King, but still had a few observations wrong as well. Next video was my Who's Going to Meet Up video, where I was trying to guess which characters that haven't met in the show before were going to meet in Season 6. And for this video, I got 16 out of 25 predictions correct for a score of 64%. So I reached my goal here as I mostly got it right. I guessed that Brienne and Podrick would meet Jon, Davos, and Melisandre, which a lot of people weren't so certain about. And this is when I started saying that Theon and Yara would meet Daenerys, but I was still clinging to some wrong predictions, such as Sam meeting Tyrion and Daenerys meeting Doran. Next was the Season 6 Episode 2 predictions, where I got 17 out of 30 predictions correct for a score of 56%. So I just barely reached my goal, as Episode 2 sparked my prediction brain going, as I was realizing that Rickon would not be involved in the Stark reunion, and that the Umbers were indeed on the Bolton side, and I correctly guessed that Ed would become the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and that Jon would quit. However, I was still thinking that Euron would be with Theon and Yara when they went to Meereen. So next video was my mid-season predictions that I made after episode 5 aired, where I got 27 out of 59 predictions correct for a score of 46%. So I failed to meet my goal here, as I was still thinking that the Manderleys would join the Starks for the battle, and that speech that I heard about in production leaks would be the Starks gaining support, but that actually took place after the battle. And I thought that Brienne would meet the Hound and that Cersei would have a trial by combat. However, I was very much correct in thinking Cold Hands would show up and essentially be Benjen Stark, but a sort of dead version of Benjen. And I remember a lot of people very strongly disagreeing with me in the comment section, so don't think that was an easy prediction, but it did turn out to be right. So finally, we get to my Season 6, Episode 9 and 10 prediction video, where I tried to predict what would happen in the final 2 episodes. There, I got 10 out of 15 predictions correct for a score of 67%. But all I care about is I got the big prediction correct. The only reason I made this video was so I can make this prediction that Arya would kill Walder Frey. This is a prediction I had made several weeks earlier in discussion videos with Afghan Tomko, but this is when I officially made this prediction. And I know I was far from the only person on the net to make this prediction, but it was not a given. There were tons of people very strongly opposed to this theory. I remember several people saying things like, "What are you, crazy? How's Arya going to get all the way to the Twins? Teleport there?" Again, never estimate the power of Littlefinger's magic teleporter. So I actually feel very proud about this prediction, because I felt so strongly about it and it turned out to be absolutely spot on. I also changed my tune about Ramsay surviving the battle and predicted that he would die at the end of the episode, which he did. Where I went wrong was I still thought Daenerys wouldn't be in episode 9, and she was, and that she'd leave Grey Worm and Missandei behind in Meereen, which, to be honest, would have made a lot more sense, but then again, I am glad that they will still be in the show. So the final score for my recent predictions series is 120 out of 212 correct for a score of 56%. So I did much better here, and I did in fact meet my goal. And 6 out of 8 of my videos met this goal, so that's good. So that's it for my Game of Thrones prediction results video. If you want more specific details on how my predictions fared. You can check out my predictions video where I added annotations and am completely honest with how I did. Also, I want to announce I will be doing a live discussion video with Atkin Tomko later tonight where we will talk about our Season 6 predictions and how we felt about them overall, and we're going to get into some Season 7 predictions as well. Sorry, I was trying to get this video out a lot earlier so I could give more notice, but alas, I got busy this week. But be sure to check that out Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. I'll leave a link in the description below. Also, be sure to check out my channel for many more Game of Thrones videos, as well as many more videos on shows like Star Trek and more. And be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.